Nick Khan. Wow, what an honor this is. Thank you for this.
Ariel Helwani, legend, right here in person in front of me. Thanks for having me on.
What a year it has been for you. Full transparency, let's put it out there.
Yes.
We used to work together.
Yes.
For 5 or so years. You were my agent up until last August of 2020, when you left to become the president and chief revenue officer of WWE. So congratulations, but I wanted to put that out there if we could for the public.
Of course, everything you said is true other than we worked together. I worked for you.
Yeah.
The agent works for the client. We don't work together. But yes, everything else you said is accurate. So thank you.
Could you take me back to the embryonic stages of when this all started? You're at CAA, a decade, you're doing great, you're on top of the game, you are the agent, right, in this world of sports broadcasting, and then you go over to WWE. But when did it all start? When did the idea of you coming to WWE start?
Well, that's kind of you to say. Those are your words, not mine. I never would consider myself that, but thank you. Look, I had the good fortune of helping the WWE as their agent with their sports media rights. So the last round of U.S. negotiations with Fox, which ultimately ended up with Fox and NBCU getting SmackDown and NBC retaining Raw, we all did that together. So we had success in that. And as you know, success can oftentimes breed closeness amongst individuals. So the relationship was developing. In August of 19, Triple H, Paul Levesque, who had become a good friend of mine, he and his wife, good friends of mine, graciously invited me and my wife to his 50th birthday party, which was really his closest friends and family members. So at that party, obviously, Vince was there, Linda McMahon was there, other folks that they're close to. And it was the first time that I thought to myself, wow, this really feels comfortable. It felt like family to me. I thought to myself, I wonder what could be down the road. It wasn't until well after that that Vince and I had the conversation. But when you mentioned the embryonic stage, that was probably it.
Were you looking to switch jobs, to switch careers, or like would you have been content staying in the sports broadcasting world, or was it Vince calling you and saying, hey, we have this opportunity, we'd love for you to come, which came first, the chicken or the egg?
I was loving being an agent, and your words earlier, I do think we had some success there doing it, and I was happy doing it. So I had been a lawyer prior to that for about 7 years, which was also interesting, but for me, being a lawyer felt like doing a lot of homework every day, and it was ultimately something I wanted to pivot out of, which I got lucky enough and pivoted out of into being an agent. So I was set in my mind to be an agent for the remainder of my career. When Vince and I started discussing it, that's when it changed, and it changed pretty quickly.
I know you're a big boxing guy.
Yes.
You have the history with Freddie Roach, Manny Pacquiao. You like MMA as well. You respect it. Were you a wrestling guy growing up?
Absolutely. So a couple things. Number one, I worked WrestleMania 9, which was at Caesar's Palace. So I was in the infancy of my college years then. I worked that event as an usher.
Wow.
So different than security usher, you take people to their seats and you sit people down. So I worked that event, and the reason I worked that event was to get into the event for free. Certainly didn't have the money to, at the time, pay to get in. But I say this for all public school kids from the 80s. If you went to public school and you grew up in the 80s, you loved wrestling. So I watched every Saturday morning. I would try desperately to stay up for Saturday night's main event. You'd go to your friend's house to watch the pay-per-view if your parents, wouldn't buy the pay-per-view yet. So, WrestleMania 1, we watched closed circuit. We were living in Los Angeles at the time. We moved around a lot as a family growing up. Watch WrestleMania 1 closed circuit, watch WrestleMania 3 from pay-per-view. So Iron Sheik was huge in our house. My parents came from Iran. My sister and I are children of immigrants. So to see him on TV saying what he was saying at that time, we loved it. And it was a lot of fun. So yes, grew up a boxing fan, a WWF at the time fan, and then ultimately an MMA fan once that became part of the mainstream.
And you spent a lot of time here in Las Vegas. Does this feel like a bit of a homecoming? Like, is your chest a little bit puffed out this week, coming back as president of the company that you worked at, an usher for, what was that, 1993, I think it was, right. WrestleMania 9, Allegiant Stadium, hopefully we're turning the corner on the pandemic. Like, there's a lot going on here. What's the feeling inside as you return home?
Well, look, this event is not about me. as you know.
But there is some pride, right?
I'm always proud of what we can do, but I'm not, at least in my opinion, I'm not a puff your chest out kind of person. I'm just happy to be along for the ride. So it is fun for me to be here. My wife's here. Our children are here. My wife and I met at UNLV, which is obviously the Las Vegas University, in 1995. So it's the 26th anniversary of our first date this December. So
wow, congratulations. You enter this world in the midst of a pandemic. There's the Performance Center, and then you pivot to the Thunderdomes. And financially, it was a great year for the company, right? You don't have to travel, you have a home base and whatnot. How would you describe the past year? Because this also represents 1 year anniversary. You started in August, I do believe.
Yes, sir.
How would you describe the past year for you working with WWE and as the president of the company?
Look, I had the opportunity to see people at their finest. So our production team, our creative team, our superstars, never taking a week off in a pandemic, literally risking their lives so we could put on a product for our fans at home at a time where there wasn't a lot of fresh content for fans at home. So I came in, again, as a representative or the agent for the WWE and the media rights. I had a glimpse from the outside looking in as to what the WWE was all about. I was impressed with it. When I saw it firsthand, how hard people worked and how dedicated they were, even more impressed.
I know you're a big sports fan. I would argue that pro wrestling initially suffered the most by not having fans in attendance because the fans are such a big part of the product and the performers are reacting to them. Were you worried in the initial stages when you took the job, like, okay, you know, there's a leash here, but if this thing continues and we're going to have to be doing events in empty arenas with digital crowds and whatnot, like, this is going to be a lot of trouble for us. Were you ever worried?
Well, I think I saw a few of your tweets about us not having fans.
I thought you're not on Twitter. I thought you're not on Twitter.
Listen, no one wants to hear my opinions on anything.
What's the account name?
So I never tweet anything.
Okay.
So, but I am a Twitter observer.
Okay, for a lurker, if you will. Okay.
People say lurker, people say creeper,
yeah.
whatever it is. That is my news feed. So I'm on it constantly, trying to see what's going on and keep up with what's going on in the world and in our world. Either way, look, we need our fans. It's the lifeblood of this business. So we have immediate reaction as to what's working and what's not working when we have our fans with us. So we did what we needed to do. I think we kicked some ass in doing it. At the same time, we were thrilled to get fans back for the 2-night WrestleMania event, and then ultimately on July 16th in Texas when we reemerged. And here we are with over 45,000 tickets sold for tomorrow night. Keep in mind, because of our production, which you're familiar with, it wipes out an end zone of seats. So we're going to be at capacity tomorrow night and ready to go.
So we mentioned the internet. They can be a very critical bunch. And I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, sometimes they will blame you for things that probably have nothing to do with you. Like, you have become this sort of figure, almost like Al Heyman in a sense, who is talked about but never speaks. You don't do a lot of this sort of stuff. When you read that, how do you react?
Listen, how I look at things in this business and in life, the people who I love and I care for, of course, I care what they think about me as an individual. The people I don't know, they're allowed to have their opinions. It does not affect me in any way. I don't read it. I don't look at it. It's not something that I derive any pleasure or pain from. So it's nothing that affects what we do. And how I look at things in terms of getting blamed for things, when something's a disaster, I want all of the credit. When something's a hit, I want none of the credit. Mm-hmm. So if I'm blamed for whatever the fans don't like, that's good by me. As long as the good folks I work with who are making hard decisions, if it takes some of it off of them, I'm good with it all day long.
As you know, there have been a lot of cuts over the past year. And again, you get blamed. I see it. Nick Khan, he's the reason for this guy, for that guy. Are you involved in those decisions, or is that a completely different department?
There's a collective of us.
Mm-hmm.
And keep in mind, at WWE, as you know, there's one boss. That's Vince, as we all know. So between Bruce Pritchard, who oversees the entire creative process, between Kevin Dunn, who oversees all of our production, between Stephanie McMahon, Paul Levesque, all are involved in these decisions, with ultimately Vince making the final decision on everything.
Could you explain why? Why have there been so many releases this year?
I don't know that there's one explanation for it. I think ultimately what's looked at is this person for us going to move the needle now or in the imminent future? So, by the way, we had a tryout, a 2-day tryout in Las Vegas, which ended yesterday, which Triple H and Johnny Laurinaitis and Bruce Pritchard were all across, as were the rest of us. We've signed over a dozen new talent coming out of that tryout, and I'm not suggesting, oh, that's why we cut the other talent, but we're always looking for what's next. We live in the present, we live in the future. We don't live in the past. So when people leave and they move on with their life and their careers, that's good by us. For us, it's what works for us and our product at that moment in time, and again, what's going to work down the road. And largely in part, the existing roster is based on that.
I heard you on the Recode podcast, and you mentioned that we're open for business. I take calls. I'm not actively pursuing anything. I take calls, and the theory is they want to sell. They want to sell. What does open for business mean?
So here's what I mean by that. And by the way, on the Recode podcast, as a couple of the producers referred to it in that building, that is your building, apparently. They say this is Ariel Helwani's building, which is otherwise known as the Vox building. So that was your first, I believe, show back with Vox. The buzz in the hallways there, people were hyped to have you there and were asking me if I knew you or I knew your work. And of course, I said some version of, yeah, I'm a fan, he's great, he's amazing, and this and that. So it was fun to be there. Couple things on it. Number one, when I say we're open for business, that means if someone credible calls on anything, NFT, trading cards, international rights, we take the call. We're inherently salespeople, meaning we're not sort of like, no, we don't want to talk to this company because we think they're X. If you call and you want to pitch us something and you're a credible company, we're going to hear the pitch, right? We're an entrepreneurial company that Vince and others built over the last 35 years or so. And we always want to stay fresh and entrepreneurial in our minds. When I say open for business, if somebody calls, credible, asking, hey, are you guys for sale? It's, what's your offer? What are you thinking? We're not trying to sell it. That's not our intent. There are no internal meetings about selling this company. The internal meetings about growing it and the ability that we think we collectively have to tremendously grow what the value of the company is now.
Is anyone calling right now about buying it?
My phone is on Do Not Disturb.
Okay, I don't mean right this second, but...
You said right now, pointing your finger now, so I'm being facetious. Yeah. Look, people call all the time about all different things, but we're not in any active conversations about any of that.
Okay, fair enough. Is there one part, and I'm not trying to get you to disparage the previous regime or anything like that, but is there a part, you guys do a great job, marketing, merch, all that stuff, that you feel is sort of, not getting enough attention? You know what, we could do better at that. There's not a lot of those things, to be honest, but is there a part of the business, the ancillary part of the business, that you would like to improve?
So I think, number one, in terms of the folks who had the job prior to me, I think highly of them and had a nice relationship with them. I think what we're looking to do moving forward, I think if you look at our international media rights, we know a global localized product is what the future holds. What I mean by that, during the pandemic, for our partners in India, which is our Sony, we did a Indian Superstar Spectacular, we called it, which was all of our Indian talent, up-and-coming talent, all right now, not known talent, against some of our American superstars. We did a 5x multiple on our rating in India for that show compared to our normally high-rated Raw and SmackDown shows. It proved out what a lot of people in the media business know. People want to see a local product. So as we look at the different international territories, we're hyper-focused on a number of them. We think there's a lot of growth there. We also think in our merchandise business, our e-commerce sales, like many other companies during the pandemic, was very, very high. Going back into arenas, our sales of in-venue merchandise also up about 50%. Why is that? We've sort of created a localized product per city. So if you, for example, tomorrow night at SummerSlam, there's going to be a lot of Las Vegas-centric WWE merchandise that you can only buy in-venue, and ultimately it'll go online also. But rather than just hoping or expecting that our fans are going to buy the same Roman Reigns shirt that they could have bought a week ago online, we have a collab with the Raiders. We have a collab with the Golden Knights. We have a 500 shirt limited edition Mr. McMahon Vegas shirts with sort of fake billionaire bucks with his image in the middle of them, just to be sold in venue tomorrow night. We think that approach, which is a group of us who came up with this, is what's led to the increased in venue merchandise sales.
I heard you say on a recent call that sleep is competition. People love that line, and you do a great job on those calls, by the way.
Oh, it's kind of you. Thank you.
And people are asking you about competition all the time, and I think,
By the way, if I usually the Helwani move,
Yeah.
and I appreciate your
Yeah.
work. Now that you're buttering me up
Yeah.
and saying I do great, now's the hard hitting
no,
question.
no,
Go
no.
ahead.
You
Yeah.
mean like there's a jab, and then there's
No, this is the I'm
Okay.
gonna elevate you up,
Right.
and I'm gonna come with the really hard question with a smile on my face.
Right.
Either way, I'm ready. Yeah.
Okay, the theory that you're letting go of talent to build competition, like they're all going in one place. Let's be honest. Let's call a spade a spade. They're going to one spot. And so it's one thing for the competition to kind of come up and now you're going head to head, but it's another when the majority of the guys who are the faces of the competition were guys who are under contract with you. Is that not a weird thing to see develop in front of your eyes?
So just one clarification on the sleep is our competition. What I had said on the earnings call is, hey, someone had said that, and
Yeah.
we were all talking about it. Ultimately, it was Reed Hastings, the co-CEO of Netflix, who said it. So I want to make sure he gets credit for the great line. Everything we look at, so I'll ask you a question back, and then, of course, I'll answer your question. You and I have known each other now for how long?
Since 2015.
I've known of your work for far longer than that. Maybe you knew a little bit of my work. Have you ever seen me talk about or think about any competitor of mine?
That's the honest truth.
Never. It's not what I do. It's not what we do at WWE. What I do and what we do, we look ahead. Where are we going? It's almost like, and this was from Jimmy Iovine in the Dr. Dre Iovine HBO doc a couple of years ago. He said at the end, he's like, you got to look at these things like a horse in a race. They put blinders on the horse. Why do they do that? So you're not looking back to see what the other horse is doing. The horse does that. They're going to trip and break their leg. I believe in my career, I've always operated that way. I know WWE has always operated that way. We look ahead. So our decisions are based on what's best for us, and whatever anyone else does with that, good for them.
How would you describe the current state of NXT? That seems to be a topic that is making people nervous. What's going on with NXT? NXT and NXT UK. Of course, we care about that here for BT Sport. But
Sure.
NXT in America, what's its status?
We're doing a complete revamp on NXT, led by Triple H, Paul Levesque, who was really one of the architects of the original NXT. So what we found, it's part of why we did the tryout yesterday. What we want to make sure is easy for folks who want to be WWE superstars is figuring out how to become WWE superstars. So if you think of the life of an elevated athlete throughout their career, the opportunity to go play somewhere has always been easy. Being able to play somewhere is not. That's what's hard. But if you're an amazing high school football player, colleges come after you, you get recruited, you go into their system, and either you make it or you don't make it. Again, all that it takes to get there, very difficult. But the system, not difficult from my point of view. So we want our system to be an easy system where people who want to be superstars, they know how to get to us and we can get to them. In terms of an NXT rebrand, look for it. In the next couple of weeks, it's going to have a whole new look. It's going to have a whole new feel. And we believe, because a lot of the indie wrestlers, if you will, have come through our system and are in our system with SmackDown and Raw now, we don't want to just keep doing that same thing. We want to look elsewhere for great young talent.
Look, feel, what do you mean? Like new logo, new
look,
setting?
The look of the show, the
Everything's gonna
production of the
change.
show,
Wow.
everything's going to change.
Okay, and that's in the next few weeks.
Next few weeks.
Which show do you like better right now? Which is the better show, Raw or SmackDown?
Listen, I think both shows are great right now. I think what Roman has developed as this monster heel has been amazing for television. The Cena return, as you know, your hero's only as good as your villain's only as good as your hero. So Cena, Roman, we love that main event. At the same time, if you look at what's happening on Raw, we think a lot of the talent that people saw as developing talent are now crossing over. So both shows are equally impressive to me. And we love the fact that in certain pay-per-views, you get both brands, matches from both brands across it, and tomorrow night's that.
Would Raw benefit from being 2 hours as opposed to 3?
Listen, from my point of view, Raw would benefit from being 4 hours, so we would get paid more money,
Okay.
and SmackDown would be 8 hours.
Okay.
But I understand that our creative folks, as amazing as they are, there's only so much great content they can do on a weekly basis, so we're good with the 3 and 2 system.
Fair enough. I'd be remiss if I don't ask about The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, who's doing great things. Your sister, by the way, produced his television show, right?
Yeah, she's
Young
the
Rock.
co-creator of the show, along with Jeff Chang. Jeff and my sister will be in attendance tomorrow night at SummerSlam. Keep in mind, she was born and raised here too. So they'll be here tomorrow night. And in terms of Dwayne, look, he's focused on being the megastar that he's built himself into. We're always talking to him about different opportunities and what could come. WWE is a producer on Young Rock. They graciously allowed us to do that because they wanted, us to be partners in it. So there's more to be done with them.
But as
for that.
a boxing guy, big match, super fights, Money Mayweather against Pacquiao, like Roman Reigns versus The Rock has to happen, right? That would be a travesty if it doesn't happen. The story is just too perfect.
Listen, from your mouth to God's ear. Let's see.
Is that something you'd like to see?
I think it's something everybody would like to see, is any of our big superstars like Roman against any of our other big superstars who can still do it. We know Cena can still do it at an A+ level. We know that Rock can still do it at an A+ level. But ultimately it comes down to all the boring business things, scheduling, when does it work, how long do we need him, how long does it take, what other commitments does he have, so we'll see.
Two last quick things. Love Saturday night. As a father of young kids, they can stay up a little later. We can watch it on Sunday if they have to go to bed. It feels like a big boxing event, a big UFC event. Saturday night to me feels better than Sunday, even though I grew up with the Sunday pay-per-view model. Are you guys moving to a Saturday night model?
We're looking for any sports date on the sports calendar where a big sporting event doesn't exist. And I'll give you an example of that. So New Year's Eve, this coming New Year's Eve, is a Friday night. Atlanta expects 300,000 to 400,000 people to go to Atlanta for New Year's. My belief is, and by the way, the 2 college football playoff games are also on that Friday, December 31st, New Year's Eve. My belief is that people who are going to Atlanta, they don't wake up Saturday morning after a long night out for New Year's and say, okay, let's go home. They want to do something on Saturday night. So I'm older than you, probably a lot older than you, but let's just leave it at that for now. I say that because there was a moment in time where all of the big college football games were on New Year's Day. Right. That's changed. They're not all on New Year's Day, as we know. So we have a Saturday night where the Rose Bowl is happening that night, but it's not one of the 2 college football playoff games. So we saw it as an open night. And the Atlanta folks, our partners at State Farm Arena, are excited for the event. We're excited for the event, and we're always going to look at that calendar to see what we think might work. Tomorrow night being an example of that as well.
This is a lazy final question, but I got to shoot my shot.
Sure.
You've dropped some nuggets here. You've given us some good stuff. Is there anything that we don't know about that's to come in the next 6, 8, 9, 10 months that fans can get excited about?
Yes, a lot.
Okay. Anything else? Anything specific that you want to tell us?
I don't want to go into the specifics yet.
Okay.
Look, again, we've known each other for a long period of time. I'm a big believer in the jinx. I don't like to talk about things even when they're done. Let it being done speak for itself, and we'll sort of take it from there. But to talk about it before it happens or even when it's done, like a number of things are done that we haven't announced, it's just not my style, and it's not the company's style.
Well, from what I know of you, you don't like to talk about things when they're done. You don't like to talk about things, period. You don't do a lot of these. No. And so I appreciate it very, very much. Thank you for sitting down with us. Congratulations on a great year. Good luck on Saturday. Welcome home.
Thank you.
And good luck in the future.
Thanks for being here to cover it. We appreciate everything you and BT does for us. Thank you.